Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this fine evening. The gentleman that I have on the call with me, a lot of you are going to be familiar with. You see Mr. Brad at Horizon Line Coffee, which is a place that a lot of us spend a lot of time. I have joked when people ask me where I office from, I tell them Horizon Line is where I have most of my meetings. Brad, I actually don't know the street of Horizon Line, but I always describe it as just south of the Sculpture Garden, right next to Exile. But what's
I
the
like that,
actual
yeah.
address?
It's 1417 Walnut Street.
Cool, cool. Yeah, and so a lot of people will be familiar with that. That's where we're at. And we have Brad on here because, Brad, you are a neighbor of ours. Even though we just moved to just across the street from Drake University during this whole quarantine, our campus moved a little farther away from Horizon Line, but like by 3 minutes, and that's if you hit red lights. But Brad's been a good neighbor of ours for a long time, and Horizon Line has been open for a couple of years now. And has been is evolved as a Des Moines staple. But Brad, you are not a native Iowan.
That is true, yeah.
This is a gotcha journalism right here. Like,
Yeah,
Brad, you're not even from here.
that's
Where?
the curveball question I've been waiting for.
That's it.
Yeah.
It comes early. But Brad, where did you just let people know, like, where'd you grow up? Kind of what that setting was like.
Yeah, so I grew up in Maryland, and then I moved to Southern California like when I started high school.
Hmm.
So I went to college and grad school out there. And then in college is when I met Nam, the other owner of Horizon Line. And so we're from Pomona, California. So it's like a little bit east of LA area. Yeah.
Well, cool. Now, for a lot of people, I know there are a lot of people that come to Revive that have been or Iowans or even just like in the Midwest most of their life. The
Okay.
thing in our minds when we hear someone from California, they're like, my question can usually be summed up in the one word of why. Why would why come to Des Moines, especially like if you've lived on both coasts essentially. You're in a beautiful part of the world in Southern California. What was the kind of impetus to show up specifically in Des Moines?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Nam and I we decided we were both working in higher education. We decided that we wanted to pursue coffee full time. And so we were basically I mean, people joke like, "Did you throw a dart at the map or something like that?" But we were basically just doing market research on where can we afford to do this and where is the place that we would want to live. And so, I mean, I think the pace of life is a lot more our style
Sure.
here. But yeah, I mean, I think that mainly.
Cool. And you kind of talk about pace of life, like what things being a little bit different. The traffic's definitely better, I'm sure.
Yes.
Places like cities or communities and in just different locations, like every place very much, at least different places that I've lived. I've never lived outside of the Midwest, but I've been very blessed to get to travel a lot of different places around the world. Every place really does kind of have its own vibe. It's got its kind of own energy to it. Because California and Iowa are certainly different places, and Maryland and any other place that you've been, I'm just curious about kind of what that experience has been like. You know, you and Nam had looked and said Des Moines could be our place. Like it has a better kind of flow of life. But as you've come to Des Moines, kind of what has that experience been like? How has that setting been different for you?
I mean, I feel like, I mean, the pace of life is definitely something that it was exactly what we had anticipated.
Sure.
I
Okay.
think, which was pretty nice. I think some of the other things I mean, I think, oh, so the first thing that sticks out of my mind. So Kansas City, Boise, and Des Moines were the three places that we were like really doing research.
Or
So we
the
visited
Trinity,
Kansas.
we call it. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, okay, for
The
sure.
Trinity of culture.
Um,
Yeah.
for sure. And so we had checked out Kansas City, and then so this is something that sticks in my mind. I felt kind of shocked. Um, we were driving from Kansas City to Des Moines, and saw this huge truck with a giant Confederate flag. And I was just like, what are, what did, not sure what we got ourselves into here
Yeah,
completely, you
yeah.
know? And so I think, I mean, that almost felt like culture shock a little bit, I guess.
For sure.
Um, so I mean, the university that Nam and I were working at is a Hispanic serving institution.
Sure.
And so, I mean, just kind of the demographics felt different, or I mean, jarring maybe.
Hmm.
But I think that in continuing to get to know people, I mean, we got to know people from many different backgrounds. I mean, so whether it's like small business owners or people that were just continually coming into the shop that were just really, I mean, like you, basically. I mean, people that we just got to chat with and get to know and kind of build relationships with. I think it's been something that, I mean, in a lot of ways, I think it's exactly what we had hoped for, that we were getting to meet people that are kind of coming from like just experiencing life. And then it's been cool being able to see people connect that I'm like, maybe you wouldn't have connected outside of the kind of environment that we were really looking to create. So that's pretty cool.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
for us at least, yeah.
For sure, for sure. What was I'm sure like some of the people that you've gotten to connect with, the meaningful relationships that you've had, like that's probably among your favorite things that have happened since then. What's maybe something that is unexpected in Des Moines? Like, is there anything that you're just like, oh man, this is
Mm.
different than I thought it was going to be?
Oh, I'm trying to think.
It's totally fine
You
if the
gave
answer's
you
no
gave
too.
me all these questions in advance, and I read them, and I was like, "Oh, I've got answers for all these." Um, uh, I mean, I think the one thing that Nam and I were maybe a little bit concerned about that I think has turned out really well for us. I think our concern was always that people are going to see us and be like, "Oh, these guys are from California, and they just want to come here and I don't know, would do whatever like
Yeah,
Californians are doing in the Midwest." You know, I don't
yeah.
know. And so I think we've been super, not even necessarily surprised, but just appreciative of the kind of like welcoming that people have offered us.
Sure, maybe a little bit more hospitable than the like than the Midwest small town like uh the stereotype statement of like we don't take too kindly to strangers kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been none of that. None of
Okay,
that.
that's good. Listen, positive. That's awesome. So you talked about how you've done a bunch of different things in life. You and Nam could do a lot of different things. In I'm just curious about like when the first, do you remember the first time you ever had coffee? And like, if you could just trace the short line between that and being like, yeah, I work in higher education, but do you know what I'd like to do? Coffee full
Yeah, yeah,
time. Like what is that?
yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, I remember drinking Folgers with my dad growing up.
Hmm.
And then,
That
I mean,
sweet
and
coffee can.
yes,
Des
yes,
Moines got to get some coffee cans. I feel like maybe that.
we're that's our future endeavor.
Yeah.
We're really going to be cutting back on quality just to do cool branding things with cans. uh, but no, I think that, I mean, in college, I mean, I drinking Denny's coffee with endless cream and sugar.
Sure.
Uh, and then I think like the first specialty coffee or like third wave coffee experience I had was at a cafe in Southern California called Drip. Uh, and then, I mean, even from there, I was like, oh, okay, this coffee is different, but I don't know how or why. That I felt like it tasted substantially better.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think, I mean, so I was finishing up school, realized that, I mean, at that point in time, I was hoping to do doctoral work. And so realized that that's not what I really want to do. And then, I mean, if I'm being honest, like working full time and doing school full time, it just didn't set me up in a place that I could get into any PhD programs that I
Sure.
wanted to.
Totally.
Um, and so I was working full time in higher education, doing a lot of, uh, I mean, basically, if students got documented for something, I was like the administrative person they basically met with and like worked to figure out, hey, why were you, I don't know, doing whatever you were doing, you know, or
Sure, sure.
like, I don't know, like, how can we work to support you, whatever it looks like.
Totally.
And realize that all the community development things that I really enjoyed about the job,
Hmm.
um, I don't know, I just kind of started drawing correlations between that and what coffee culture looks like.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and then I remember telling Nam, I was like, "Yeah, I think I want to open a coffee shop." Like, and he was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, sweet, I'm in." And in my mind, I'm like, "This wasn't an invitation. Like, this was not like a, hey,
Mhm.
we're doing this together. This is just me telling you this is what I want to do." And he's
Sure.
like, "Dude, I'm down." So I'm like, "Okay, cool. Like, I've got a friend that's on board with this. That's sweet."
I
Um,
love that the description of that
yeah,
is you're like, hey, Nam, I'm going to go do this. He's like, cool, I'll come with you. And you're like, okay.
yeah. All right, all right. I mean, and
The
then
best
I
part is
mean,
part two is when I talk to Nam next week. And
yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah, Brad totally just came with me. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my vision that Brad jumped on with.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think it's worked out really well. Nam and I complement each other, like different things that, I mean, in a lot of ways, there have been multiple projects or multiple things that like I'm passionate about that I'm like, sweet, I'm gonna do this. And then I just never, I guess, put the rubber to the road or whatever.
Sure.
I think that's a phrase or an idiom.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, those are things that Nam is good at. Like, hey, like practically, like, how do we make this work? And I realized I was just holding my cup here. I'm trying to drink this also.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Well, and so actually, real quickly, Brad, you used a
Yeah.
term that I know is popular in coffee culture. You talk about third wave coffee. For somebody listening
Yeah.
who might just be kind of like Horizon Lines, their introduction to this kind of coffee in Des Moines, like what's the like the Twitter version of like what third wave coffee is? Like if you could describe
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, just a few simple things like, I mean, it's better quality coffee. And so that starts at the farm. So a lot of people don't know that, oh, you open Pandora's box here. I'm going to go
it.
way
Yeah,
much
no,
further
it's
than
all
you
good.
wanted.
It's all good. Do it.
Um, I mean, so coffee beans are actually seeds from a fruit. And so, on the farm production picking, so basically picking only ripe cherries. Uh, Coffee quality is actually graded. So specialty grade coffee is 80 points and higher. Um, and so, yeah, so specifically ripe fruit, um, opposed to like just, I mean, if you were to make orange juice and you went up to the tree and with a machine and you just took all the oranges and there were some that were brown and some that were green. If you had just good oranges, like those are like ripe oranges, those would be that would make the best one. And so that's part of the goal is hand picking like selective, yeah, fruit, the ripe cherries. Then it's basically micro roasting, so on a smaller scale, more quality control.
Mhm.
And then generally speaking, it's a lighter roast profile to kind of accentuate some of those nuances in where the coffee is grown, what varietal of coffee bean it is. And then basically a higher attention to detail in the brewing methods. So uh, I don't know. There, I mean, I could get into a whole lot of. Yeah, that's
Totally.
good. We're gonna stop there. That sounds good.
No, no, yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, like yeah, basically, you guys have taken, and other folks who are kind of part of this movement that you're talking about have taken a lot of. It's kind of along the whole vertical line of where when coffee is grown out of the ground, straight to like me drinking it before a meeting. In
Yeah, yeah,
Bitcoin, like you've taken really careful care about that, not just in how it grows or how it's picked or how it's roasted, but also, we have plenty of people I know in our community that, they like their Chemexes or their AeroPresses or their
for
pour overs,
sure.
their V60s or whatever that is. Um, do you have a favorite method of brewing coffee? I'm just curious. This is just for me now, but
I really like a just like a solid V60.
yeah, that's your jam.
I mean, I have like way too many things, like different brewing things that I'm like I will try them, and I'm like sweet. Like I still just enjoy like a nice V60.
Yeah, don't mess with perfection, man. But
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, and so one thing that struck me as you're talking about your story and kind of how um, you and so I've mentioned, this community that we're speaking to is primarily kind of in the young adult stage of life. We've talked about being the quarter life stage of things, and one of the
Yeah,
interesting things about our generation is that um, there was kind of a pre-prescribed way that you do things or find success in life, which was go
Yeah.
to as much school as you possibly can, and then like that will reward you later in life, like, and
Yeah.
like you go to a lot of school and then you get a job somewhere, and then that'll be great, and then you just do that forever, and then
Yeah.
high five, and that's awesome. But I feel like one of the things that I know specifically, just I think of so many individuals in the community that we're speaking to, is like that method hasn't necessarily worked for them. Like
Yeah.
that whole trajectory of life hasn't exactly been the case, and instead, you guys seem to be a part of this generational narrative in which we are going, hey, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to follow some passions that I have, um, tied to some values that I have, and
Yeah.
really, and just see what I can do with that, and realizing that the dangers inherent to that, the instability inherent with that, exacerbated 1,000 times with COVID and all these different things, like
For sure.
that's a really kind of fulfilling way to live life. Would you does that resonate with you? Like, do you feel like that's kind of been part of what you guys have experienced?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's pretty spot on. I mean, on our end, it was go do as much school as you can and then
Hmm.
do something in a completely different field that
Yeah,
is not like with the highest profit margin, you know?
yeah, for sure, for sure. And as you look at Horizon Line, the thing that you've kind of made, knowing that you've been a part of a lot of different things, you've studied a lot of different things, you spent time caring for different people in different stages of their life at school and a bunch of different places. As you look at Horizon Line, now that you guys have been here for a couple of years, and you guys have worked to do that, meaning follow your passion, but also your value, and try to carve out this new thing. What are you most proud of as you've kind of moved into a new city, a new
Mm.
state, a new community, and made a new business?
Shoot, I think that, I mean, there are some, and maybe this like maybe a little bit more of like a surface level thing, but there are some people that come in and would always have like a coffee drink that was like the sweetest thing ever, and
Yeah,
now they're drinking black coffee and they're like, sweet, I taste these nuances that people told me were there that I didn't believe were there. And so I'm
yeah,
like, that's super cool.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but I think that some of the things that I feel like really stand out to me are more of the interpersonal relationships that we've built with people. And so I mean, Yelp reviews and Google reviews, I'm like, it can be the bane of, you know,
Yeah,
my existence.
sure.
Um, and, but like, there's some that I'm like, man, this makes what like our, I mean, sacrifice or whatever that looks like
Mhm.
worthwhile. And people are like, I felt seen. I'm like, that's really cool. Like that's a lot more than coffee. Like we serve people. We don't serve I mean, I guess we serve people and coffee, you know,
Yeah.
that's kind of our service model. And so yeah, I think that just creating an experience for people where, hey, I felt appreciated and seen, and someone talked to me, and it was more than just give me your money, I'll give you a drink.
Yeah,
Um, that's probably like the most meaningful full thing for me. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. And there are people from all different walks of life and a bunch of different, generations, or wherever that kind of life journey is at for people. Like Horizon Line seems to always have a little bit of everything in it, and I think that's really cool because I think that's a good representation of Des Moines. But specifically for folks in their 20s and their 30s, like coffee shops for our generation has really kind of been kind of an important staple in a new way that it never has before. And part of that is with like craft coffee kind of movement, like third wave stuff for sure, like that's newer. But coffee shops in a lot of different ways have been staples for community, for our generation specifically. What do you think it is about coffee and coffee shops in general that really brings people together?
I don't know. I mean, like I feel like I've read articles where people talk about, well, with social media, there's this sort of maybe disconnect of like connection because you have like people just on like on their phones or like whatever it is, and so coffee shops offer a physical location for gathering. But I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily think that's true. I'm like, there's always something that's gonna be present to be maybe like a barrier of connection. But I think that, I mean, superficial answer could be like Instagram or like social media, and like people are like, yes, I want to show that I was here or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that it's more than that.
You're like, Kenzie's latte art is great, and I'm going to
Yeah,
put
yeah,
this on the gram.
yeah, yeah. I taught her latte art, so I'm gonna hold on to
Yeah.
that because she's better than me now.
You are, I was
um,
gonna say you're like the Obi-Wan of latte art, is what you're saying.
yeah, I'll take that. Yeah,
Okay.
but I think that I don't know. I mean, finding a I mean, Nam and I, like, even when we opened, like, there are gonna be people that come in, and this is just where, like, the drink is not what like, they just want the darkest roast possible, or this is like, they want couches, and we don't have either of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, we understand that everyone like, I hope everyone finds their place wherever it is.
Sure.
And we'll be kind to you and, like, chat with you regardless if it's your place or not. I'm like, because
Sure.
we want everyone to feel welcomed and cared for. Um, but I think there's a growing movement of like, hey, I want to. I don't know if it's necessarily like it sounds cliche to be like I want to enjoy the finer things.
Sure.
But like same with like craft beer. I'm like craft coffee and craft beer is super
Mhm.
similar to me.
Totally. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I think it's just hey, there's something that was just a commodity before, and I'm experiencing it in a new
Mhm.
way, and I'm doing it with my friends, or I'm doing it with this book
Mhm.
or a record that like I mean like I don't know. I think there's something beyond just a transactional sort of thing that brings people. I mean, like a lot of people our age, but I think people older and younger too.
Mhm. Well, for sure, and I think it makes sense. It's I feel a hesitancy for you to use the term finer things, but I even think like beyond like any financial aspect of it, or beyond any sort of like specificity, or people seeming picky, I think it's like it feels good to be passionate about something. You know what I mean? Like
Agreed. Yeah.
it feels good to know the difference between, like, to really care. And I feel like, when you get down to some of the craft elements of it, it's that you've cared the whole process through, so
Yeah.
I definitely resonate with that for sure. Now you guys have gone through this whole process of being downtown and kind of developing menus, and I know you guys do a lot of fun different seasonal things, and
Yeah.
things are humming along per usual, and then this weird thing that's never happened before, which is the current state that
Yeah.
we find ourselves in, happens with COVID-19 and all the things that come along with it. I mean, we're having this conversation because we can't have it in person. You know,
Yeah.
our community hasn't met in person in a long time, and so we're all just trying to innovate in a lot of different ways, and we're in very different industries. But you guys obviously as a small business have been affected by this quarantine measures and just the virus in general. And my question for you is, I mean, there's lots of different things that businesses are doing to stay afloat, but what are you doing to stay sane during this whole thing?
Um, I mean, personally,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, hanging out at home, working on house projects, uh, playing music. I mean, I think those are some of the like that's like those are like the main things that I'm doing to kind of I don't know, I guess stay in a good headspace.
Sure.
Um, the business we've been doing, I mean, I've still been roasting coffee.
Mhm.
Um, so we've been doing deliveries of roasted coffee, shipping tons of coffee. We've been doing basically drink packs. So like
Mhm.
a 4 pack, um, that we were doing at least 3 times a week. Sometimes like up to like 5 or 6 times a week.
I've been the
Um,
direct beneficiary of some of the drink packs, so
good, good, good.
yeah.
And so I mean, those things are. I mean, it's keeping me busy. Like I'm.
Mhm.
I don't want to say I'm working more than I was before, but I'm probably not working less than I was.
Right.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's a weird thing to be like the shop is closed,
Mhm.
but we're still. I mean, we're still doing stuff. There's always stuff that needs to get done. I mean, Yeah.
It doesn't, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, but it kind of seems what you're describing is, you know, just because you're not able to connect with people in the same way or engage with your passion with some of the same metrics or some of the same avenues, like that hasn't stopped you from focusing on the things that you love. Like you're just like
Yeah.
finding new ways to do things. Like you're taking the opportunity to innovate and certainly partner with other small businesses as well. I mean, you guys have, if anything, I think there's like, for those of us who don't work in the small business world, thinking, man, I mean, it's hard out there. Like, I bet it's, you know, you're feeling some sort of way about other businesses, like quote unquote, moving in on your turf or something. But I mean, I see you guys on Instagram being like, hey, we're partnering with this other small business, you know,
Yeah.
kind of bringing the community together a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's been one of the most enjoyable things. I mean, so we've done stuff with Lucky Lotus, the Goodie Bowl, Marnie, the Collective,
Hmm.
Django. Um, if I leave anyone out right now, I'll feel so
No,
terrible.
it's all good.
Um,
There's
but
Grace
yeah, I
there.
mean,
They know you love them.
okay, okay, good, good, good.
If Brad didn't
Um,
just list your business, Brad loves you. It's all
yeah,
good.
thank you. I'm like, that's one of those things where I don't know. We know that they're in similar situations. I mean, some people even, I mean, with some of the SBA relief things,
Mhm.
I mean, some of our friends aren't even eligible because they've been open for only a few months, you know, and
Sure,
so,
sure.
so I mean, that's rough. Like, so we feel that, and it's been a weird thing too because we're technically have been able to be open for takeaway service this whole time.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know, it's just kind of constantly weighing what it looks like. Hey, we wanted we obviously we want to stay in business,
Hmm.
um, but we also want to do good business. So I'm like, I don't know. I was talking on the phone with my mom, and we don't necessarily see eye to eye on some things.
Sure, sure.
And okay, that's the most ambiguous way I feel like I can put this.
No, that's fine.
Um, and so I think that, and she's just like, well, I mean, you can open up, like you can do whatever it is, like you got to stay in business. I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm like, what's the like? It's not worth the to Nam and I, at least up to this point, it's not been worth the risk of.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I think most likely we would be fine if we were to like contract COVID-19. But I'm
Mhm.
like, we serve a lot of people that I don't know if that's the case. And so like,
Mhm.
why would we risk hurting ourselves or like our guest, you know?
No, totally. Yeah, I feel that 100%. I mean, people have said similar things to us where they've said, you know, religious organizations, oh, so is Hope open this week, quote unquote, open this weekend? And the
Yeah.
thing that we tell people is we never closed. Like we're
We're
not,
open in the basement, man.
yeah, yeah. No, and I've told people, you know, we've innovated and we've done a bunch of different things, but you know, just because just because things had to change format doesn't mean that we've ever stopped doing what we're doing. And what you're talking about is the difference between what's pertinent or even allowable legally and what's wise. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike from West Des Moines and the rest of our leadership above me has said the same thing, and I've echoed them in all different podcasts and things we've done. You know, there's what's legal and there's what's permissible, and then there's what's wise.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those things don't always line up, and so we're going to stand in what we think best serves people in whatever health state they end up being. But absolutely, it's, you know, you guys are making the decisions that you feel like care best for the people possible, and for sure. I mean, you guys have definitely. What was the radius you were driving? Like 10 miles?
Oh man, 10 miles in each direction becomes a long track.
I mean, it seems reasonable when you say the number, but then you like draw a 10-mile circle around Des Moines, and you're like, oh, so like Iowa. No,
I'll hit Norwalk and Ankeny in the same delivery.
yeah, that's nuts. That's nuts. But I mean, and like you could technically avoid all of that, but at the same time, you're taking care of your people. You know, you're saying like these are things that you're sacrifices that you're making, obviously, to care best for the people that you love.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, I feel like during this time, because it's certainly affected everybody differently, but the
Yeah.
unique thing in this is that it has affected just about everybody, regardless of
Yeah.
their stage or where they work or what they're doing. And, we have students in this as well. And one thing that I think has been kind of this interesting Venn diagram of all these different groups is that people are kind of leaning into passions a little bit more, leaning into hobbies, because even if it's just the commute time that they're saving, like people are picking up the guitar, like people are getting the
Yeah.
apps to help them make that podcast they were always wanting to make, or whatever that is. And I think it's been really cool, just people leaning into passions that they have. But I feel some of the people that I've talked to and that I've connected with, they say it almost in an embarrassed way, right? They're like, well, yeah, I mean, I did this thing and it was fine. And I was like, oh, what'd you do? They're like, well, I wrote a short story or whatever. But they're like so embarrassed. I'm like, no, that's great. Like, good for you for like being creative, like following a passion, doing all these things. You and Nam are people who followed passion. You guys took it all the way from like you drank coffee once in California and were like, wow, this is way better. You've taken it all the way to you now help lead a movement in central Iowa. So I just am wondering, for people who are feeling a little bit sheepish about that side hustle, about that passion, about that, whatever that happens to be, wherever they are in the progression of that, what encouragement might you have for people who are maybe like dream about starting a business or dream about
Yeah.
following passion, or whatever that looks like?
Shoot. Have you heard Gary Vee?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Man, his stuff, I
All
didn't
day, man.
come upon him. I didn't come upon him until, I don't know, maybe like 2 years ago, or like we
Right.
had already been open.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of the things that he talks about like really resonated with me.
Mm.
So before we moved out here, I was working full time at the university. And before that, 3 days a week, I would get up and drive like 35, it was probably like 30 minutes. And I was interning at a roastery and I was doing like a roasting apprenticeship there. So I go do that at like 5:30 in the morning, then go to my job, and then I'd pick up like bar shifts at a coffee shop that I mean, he's a friend now, had opened. So I'm like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I mean, there's sacrifice involved in, if it's like, man, I want to do this all the time. Like I think when people are like, if you're doing, it's not work if you're doing what you love. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's probably, I don't think that's accurate. Um, Cause I mean, there's like all the behind the scenes. I'm like, yeah, I roast coffee and I make drinks and stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm a professional toilet scrubber too, like
Yeah, for
these are all
sure.
the things that, uh, I don't know. I think sometimes just get not thought about. Like, I don't know, like
Mhm.
the owners don't
Yeah.
do this or the owners don't do that. And maybe there are some businesses where that's the case and you've
Mhm.
got maybe like more, I don't know, just capital to have someone do the toilets
Yeah.
for you, I guess.
100%.
Um, but I don't know. I think it's one of those things where, like, I don't know, I would encourage anyone to follow what it is that you're enjoying.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't want to get like too, I feel like it's too like cliche or like preachy of like, just follow your dreams. Cause I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes that just does not work out. Like,
Yeah.
like that's the reality of it.
Mhm.
And for us right now, we've been, I mean, making ends meet. I mean, like I mean, prior to this, like every month was better than the month before. Like
Mhm.
I get to work with people I enjoy. I get to serve people that are sweet, like it's super
Yeah.
cool. Um, I was talking about Jed
Yeah.
and Jamie and Emmy and Emma. Yeah.
Yeah.
No offense. Yeah.
No, that's cool. It's fine. It's no big deal.
Uh, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like,
It's been great talking to you, Brad. I'll see you. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like for us, I'm like working, like when we opened, I'm like, it was like working 80 hours a week with no paycheck for, I mean, a extended period of time. And
Yeah.
so like, those are the realities of like what that
Mhm.
looks like of pursuing that.
Mhm.
Um, I'm like, I don't know, but I also acknowledge that, I mean, like Nam and I talking, like we didn't have money. Like we went through and got like an SBA loan, something like that. And like, that's cool. But I'm like, there's also still some level of like privilege of being in a place where we could even do that. Where
Totally.
like I was
Totally.
able to pursue those passions.
Yeah.
And so I think it's one of those things where, I don't know, we did not come from like, we had no like millions of dollars sitting in the bank waiting for us, like
Yeah.
to do this, to like pursue whatever we wanted to do.
This was not like your lottery play. Like
No.
you won on scratchers and you guys are like, we're moving to Des Moines.
Yeah. But I don't know, I think we'd like to encourage people to, at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want it to get too morbid or too preachy. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna die. Like,
Yeah.
we're all gonna die. Like, that's like the only
Yep.
guarantee. And so I'm like, yeah, I want to spend it doing things that I enjoy with people that I enjoy doing those things with.
Mm-hmm. Even at the cost of some of the work that you're doing, right? Like what, you're having to do a bunch of different things that are probably, not your favorite thing. Like if you were to write your dream job, a lot of your day probably doesn't involve a lot of what you're doing, but at the same time, you recognize, and I know Gary Vee, the podcast or YouTube person that you mentioned, like talks a lot about this, like,
yeah,
you're basically finding the thing that lights you up. Like you're finding the thing that Pastor Richard from West Des Moines talks a lot about, finding the things that fill your cup, like finding the things. And for you realized it was getting up at 5:30 in the morning before, you know what I mean? Like that's, if something lights you up while having to make a lot of sacrifices, there's probably some resonance there, right? Like there's probably something to follow. And so you're jumping into that, and for people leaning into whatever that happens to be, I mean, absolutely, that seems like you're following something that's meaningful to you, and it's about what it's about for you, right? Like you and Nam wanted, like, there's a vision behind all of it, is what I'm saying. It's not just like you guys were like, well, we wanted to like just have like a lot of fun, and then
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you guys have certainly made a place that a lot of folks from our community love to be in. And, I'm excited for what is next for you guys. I'm hoping that whatever is next, because I still don't know, none of us can tell the future, but I'm grateful for the role that you guys have played. I'm appreciative that you guys have been my office lots of days. And yeah, man, is there anything else that you guys have coming up on the horizon? Oh man, I didn't even
no pun intended. Yeah, right.
Oh, I didn't even mean to. I'm so sorry. Everybody just followed the podcast.
Yeah, they're like, turn this off. Yeah, I mean, I think that Nam and I were chatting this morning actually. And so, I mean, we're kind of preparing what it looks like to reopen for a takeaway service in the next coming weeks. So I think as of today, restaurants can be open to 50% capacity.
Sure.
And so I think we're planning on opening for just online orders. So like contactless service, no one will be able to come into the shop to order. It'll be all online.
Sure.
And then, so I mean, I think it'll be a slow ease back into kind of like a more standard routine for us, opposed to roast deliver, sort of back and forth sort of thing.
Not all those, you're not going to be in the Horizon Line tour bus circling around.
No. So for all the people that are more than 10 miles away that have been sad and frustrated with us, I'm really sorry, but we are ready to welcome you back soon.
those people living outside of that, I'm trying to think, I think I was like 10 and a half miles or something like that. And so I have appreciated the grace of my sister and other people who have been like, hey, I got a Horizon Line pack. I'm like, yes.
Nice. They're like, I don't have any for you, but I got it.
Yeah. Appreciate it. No, man, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out. Just please know that we're thinking about you. You know what I mean? Like all these people that you're used to, the cool people like Emma and Jed and the other people like myself and the rest of Revive, we really appreciate you guys and all the love and the care that you put into what you do. And we're certainly praying for you, and we look forward to being able to come in and disrupt your days, hopefully sometime soon.
For sure. Well, thanks. I mean, thanks for the kind words, and thanks for, I don't know, like Nam and I are always still, we're weirded out almost that people are like intrigued, like want to talk to us about stuff. So I'm like, thank you for, I don't know, like even just being interested in everything that we're doing.
Of course, of course. You can follow Horizon Line. I believe the Instagram handle is just Horizon Line Coffee, I think.
Yeah.
And so follow Brad, Nam, and all the rest of the folks there. And hopefully we will get to see you in person sometime soon.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.
See you later, my guy.
Bye.
Peace.